Welcome to Theme 5. Today we're going to talk about the first few steps of the personal selling process, prospecting and qualifying. I really like this quote about selling and sales. The main purpose of a salesperson is not to make sales, but to create customers. And that's really what we're going to focus on in this particular theme. Prospecting is the systematic and strategic process of identifying potential business to consumer customers. When we're talking about B2B customers, we tend to use the phrase account or business development rather than prospecting, but for all intents and purposes, those terms can be used interchangeably. A prospect is a potential customer who meets the qualification criteria established by you or your company. So these aren't just everyday people you run into off the street. They are actually people who meet the criteria that you've established for who you think or want your customers to be. It can actually be a much more complicated process when it comes to B2B business because there are so many different potential players and parties involved that figuring out what each person's role might be and how you as a salesperson might need to interact and engage can be much more complicated. But the general process is the same. The prospect base for any company is the list of current and potential customers, and that is who your salespeople should be targeting and trying to connect with in a meaningful way on a regular basis. In prospecting, every effort is made to ensure that your prospecting list, or your list of potential and existing customers, is as accurate and current as possible. But the reality is, situations change. And so you may find people who were existing customers of yours and were on your prospect list may end up moving off your list. You may be adding new people to the list, and it should be a constant sort of ebb and flow of people on and off your list. There's a number of reasons why people might go off your prospecting list. The account may have been a one-time purchase. They were only going to purchase from you one time. There's no real demand or potential for repeat business. So in that particular case, the prospect may move off of your list. The customer may move outside of your particular sales territory. If you know that in advance and you think the customer may still be a good potential customer for your organization, you can sort of partner with another salesperson in the new territory and maybe transfer that customer over. A firm may go out of business and merge with another company, and so the prospecting lists may change or evolve because of that. A loyal buyer, especially a business buyer, may leave their position in the organization, and therefore you no longer have an established relationship with somebody in the organization. In an ideal situation, of course, you would try to find out who replaced that person and start to develop a relationship with this new individual. But you may find that person in particular, the one you previously had a relationship with, ends up moving off your list. And sometimes your customers just move on to the competition. And there's really not a whole lot you can do about it after the fact. It may make sense to try to figure out why that happens so you don't see it happening on a regular basis, but sometimes you just lose sales to the competition. This little visual sort of depicts the ebb and flow of customers in and out of your prospecting list. The middle little Ferris wheel represents the current list of potential prospects for you as a salesperson. The column of boxes on the left-hand side show a variety of different ways you can add people to your Ferris wheel. So whether it's referrals, family and friends, whether it's directories, whether it's telemarketing and email, whether it's websites and computer databases, whether it's cold calling, you can add people to your Ferris wheel looking at the left-hand column of prospecting ideas. On the right-hand side in that column is all the reasons why a customer may leave your prospecting list. And it includes, again, moving, the death of a customer, acquisition and mergers, business failures, those sorts of things. This is a good representation of the movement of customers in and out of that prospecting list. Of course, you want your prospecting activities to be as productive and high quality as possible. You want to ultimately increase the number of people who board your Ferris wheel, to use the metaphor from the previous slide. You want to improve the quality of the people who are actually on your Ferris wheel so that they represent really good prospective customers. And you want to shorten the cycle between when you determine these new prospects, when you identify them, and then when you determine they're actually qualified prospects. And we're going to talk about qualification in just a few minutes. But you want to move them from, the time when you first identify them until the time you figure out, yeah, this person represents a really good prospect for me. You want to shorten that time frame. There are a number of ways you can source new prospects, and here's just a few of them. Referrals are actually considered one of the best possible ways of identifying potential new prospects. We'll talk a little bit more about referrals later. But referrals is really when you get an existing customer or an existing partner, maybe in your supply chain, to recommend people to you. And one of the reasons why referrals work is it gives the salesperson an automatic or built-in way to connect with the customer. You can say, oh, our mutual friend John suggested I give you a call to talk about whatever it is you need to talk about. So referrals are an incredibly powerful and impactful way to source prospects, and that's why we're seeing more and more companies try to incentivize referrals. So for example, often, if you refer a friend, you get something in return. So you might get a gift card or 10% off, or I know there was a realtor that my husband and I used years ago when we sold, I think, our first house. And so we used him as a real estate agent, and later on we referred another person that we knew to him as a real estate agent, and in return he gave us, unbeknownst to us, we didn't do it for the incentive, but he gave us a gift certificate of $100 to a local restaurant. So he was very happy to get his new customer through referrals. You can, of course, also use your family and friends and your connections that way. You can use directories. I noticed actually in the past week or two, the Charlottetown Rotary Club sent out their annual business directory. I guess my husband brought it home, and of course we're looking through it, and it's a directory of a lot of small locally owned businesses, and it tells you who the owners and who the people are that work there. Using those kinds of directories are a great source of prospects. Trade publications. So if there are journals or newsletters or other kinds of publications that are specific to your industry or to your trade, those can be really good sources of prospects. Also, trade shows and special events that are held in particular industries can represent an opportunity for you to meet new people and make new connections. Telemarketing and email can offer opportunities for sourcing new prospects, as can direct response advertising and sales letters. So these are when you provide or send marketing communication directly to somebody and ask them to respond in some fashion that enables you to make that connection. You can use websites and social media, so track people who log on to your website or inquire about something, or who follow you on social media. You can use those avenues as well to source prospects. You can use computerized databases that you may have access to or may be able to purchase access to. There's of course cold calling, which is just really calling people almost at random. It's not usually completely random, but just calling people out of the blue. You, of course, can develop your source of prospects through a variety of networking opportunities, whether that's getting involved in community organizations like the Chamber of Commerce or the Rotary Clubs, or even things like participating in golf tournaments. And those sorts of things are considered to be networking opportunities where you might meet new people. You can hold educational seminars. Real estate agents often do this. They'll hold an educational seminar for first-time home buyers, where they sort of teach them about the ins and outs of buying your first home, but at the same time, they're helping make connections with potential new customers. And you can encourage your non-sales employees to help you identify and source potential prospects for your business. As I mentioned to you before, just a few minutes ago, referrals are one of the best ways to get new prospects on your prospecting list. Referrals tend to lead to higher close rates, larger sales, and shorter sales cycles. They're in effect a really, really good way to get new customers. A referral is a prospect who's been recommended by a current customer or someone who's familiar with your product and service. And it's really can be an endless cycle of referrals. So if you get a customer who does refers somebody to you, and this new person becomes a customer, if you can incentivize them to also offer you a referral, those things are really, really beneficial. And that's why we're seeing more and more companies build in incentives or rewards for referral practices, because they know referral is one of the best possible ways to get new prospects. So it's really important to understand how referrals might work, and if you can at all, to help your customers provide you with referrals by making sure you have readily available information that they could pass on, or again, incentivizing them to do so. Industry trade shows or industry events represent a great opportunity, especially for highly specialized industries where the general public may not be a major focal point in terms of consumers, but that a small targeted group of people who have like-minded interests and focus come together in a physical space, and it makes it really easy for you to make those kinds of connections. So trade shows, trade publications, and special events that are targeted towards your particular industry and the general target audience that you're trying to pursue represent a really good opportunity. They can be quite expensive. It's not uncommon for booths at major trade shows to cost $10,000, $15,000, $25,000 or more. However, if it's done really well, it can represent a really significant opportunity for you as a salesperson to make really, really important and meaningful connections with people in your trade or in your industry. Well, we often think of telemarketing and email spam type solicitation of business to be quite annoying. And I've never actually done the research on this, but the fact that these practices are still used relatively consistently by major corporations suggests to me that the cost-benefit analysis means that these practices actually work in the long run. So telemarketing is the practice of marketing your goods and services through the telephone. It's those calls that you get during supper time that we all are familiar with. We also all get email spam. There's some ethical issues around that. The response rate for email spam can actually be quite low, but the cost of doing it is also quite low. There's some ethical issues around, you do want to allow people to opt in and of course to opt out of being solicited via email. There was actually a spam email that I received not that long ago, and I tried to unsubscribe. I'd been getting these emails for a while. It just wasn't of interest to me anymore, and I could not for the life of me find a way to opt out of the subscription. And I found that to be very frustrating. So you need to consider those kinds of ethical issues. Sometimes through emails they use the newsletter format to provide information to potential prospects. So it seems less like a sale or a solicitation and more of an information sharing kind of activity, and that can be effective in the long run. And again, it's from an email perspective, it's relatively cost effective, even though the response rate is quite low. It doesn't cost a whole lot either. When direct response marketing or sales letters are done well, they can generate a lot of curiosity or inquiry among potential consumers. Sales letters can be sent from databases that can be targeted to particular people. Direct response marketing is marketing that's targeted to specific people. So it's not mass sent out to everybody. It's targeted, and it's usually customized for the individual who's being targeted. So it's a piece of mail that you might get that's actually addressed to you at your address. It's not sent out to everybody on your street. It's actually targeted to you. These sales letters can be generated from databases, and they usually require some sort of a follow up 3 or 4 days after the letter has been sent or received to sort of move it a little bit along a little bit further. So asking for an appointment, for example. And of course, these direct response marketing and sales letters have to get people's attention really quickly. Otherwise, these letters simply go into the recycling bin and nobody even pays attention to them. Websites and databases offer a terrific opportunity for developing a prospecting list. If people have to subscribe or enter their email address or provide you with a little bit of information when they visit your website, that can generate an opportunity for you to add them to your potential prospecting list. It's an opportunity for you to gather information and learn a little bit more about these customers. And of course, you can also incentivize them to provide you with information. If you subscribe to a newsletter, you get a 10% off your first purchase, for example. Computerized databases also allow you to do some customized mining and sourcing to target a smaller subsection of the larger database in a meaningful way that might end up resulting in high quality prospects. Cold calling is when a salesperson selects a group of people who may or may not be actual prospects and either calls on them by phone or by personal visit for each one. And there's really not much evidence that these individuals may represent a good prospect. So there's a lot of, I guess you'd call it, wasted effort with cold calling because it's really hit or miss. In comparison, a hot call is when you call somebody out of the blue or without sort of any previous connection, but you've got a reason to believe that that they might represent a good prospect. There's something about them you're not just calling them at random or out of the blue. There's a reason why you're calling them. It's a good potential use and more strategic use of your time. Cold calling requires an elevator speech, a 30-second message that summarizes what you want people to know about you, and you want to get that out of your mouth as soon as the person picks up the phone. Because if you don't get that message out quickly, you'll find that people will shut down, they'll not be receptive to your message, and they'll end the call quite briefly. So you want to have an elevator pitch that will encourage people to stay on the line or stay with you in person for a little bit longer so you can help start to develop that relationship. We talk a lot about networking in the business program, and we try to give you opportunities to do some networking while you're in the business program. But networking really is the practice of making and using your contacts. It's about meeting strategic people, making connections with them, and then building off those preliminary relationships to hopefully create more profitable and meaningful relationships. So whenever students go to the Business Society Luncheon, for example, we're hoping that you're going to be able to meet professionals in the work community, professional in the business community, where you might be able to follow up with them later on or connect with them in other meaningful ways that help build those relationships. Professionals, entrepreneurs, managerial personnel, and customer service representatives must develop this skill. Networking is critical not only for salespeople, but for anybody who's even looking for a job. Networking is one of the most fundamental skills you should be working on when you're part of the business program. There's 3 steps to the process. One is getting comfortable approaching someone and engaging them in conversation. And again, I think I mentioned this to you a few weeks ago. If we were doing this course in class and COVID-19 wasn't a thing, I actually get students we leave the classroom one day and send you out across campus, and I ask you to approach a complete stranger and engage them in conversation. NetChat is collecting and giving out information as quickly as possible. So it's things like having your business card or a copy of your resume handy with you on a regular basis so that you can hand those out relatively seamlessly if you happen to meet people. And then, of course, the third step of the networking process is to disengage, is to actually know when to stop. Most people at networking events don't want to spend half an hour talking to one person. They're there to network as well. So it's important to learn how to keep your conversations short, brief, to the point. Thank the person for meeting with you and sharing a few moments of conversation with you, and then move on. And when you're reading How to Win Friends and Influence People, you're going to see a lot of different strategies for how to network with people embedded in that book. To continue on with networking, you want to meet as many people as you possibly can. And we try to give you opportunities to do that in the business program. And I'm always, I guess, surprised by there's always a core group of students who take advantage of those networking opportunities, but I'm always surprised at how many of our business students do not take advantage of those networking opportunities. And I can tell you, having been teaching at the university for a long time now, almost 19 years, the students who take advantage of networking opportunities that we present to them as part of their business program are almost always the ones who are the first to get jobs outside of the business program when they're done. So you want to meet as many people as you possibly can. When you meet people, you want to tell that person what you do, and you want to make it as relevant and meaningful as possible to the person you're meeting. You do not want to do business while networking. You're not here to sell. Even when you're selling yourself, you're here just to make connections and let people get to know you. If you don't already have one, you should have a business card made up and keep a stack of them in your wallet or bag or pocket so that you can easily provide a new person that you meet with your business card. Another little piece of advice for students is to make sure that your email address is something that is business appropriate. I cannot tell you the number of times that I've received emails from students. When you check their email address, it is completely inappropriate. It's not a professional email address. It may be fine if you want to email and converse with your friends using that email address, but it's not appropriate at all in a professional context. And then you should follow up with your contacts. If somebody gives you a business card at a networking event, you should follow up in a day or so and just reintroduce yourself and keep that line of communication open. Educational seminars are opportunities for you and your company to showcase your product without the pressure of expecting a sale to happen at that time. It can help you obtain sales leads, but the purpose of the seminar is not to actually finalize sales. It's to showcase your product, introduce yourself to people and what you can do, and to make those connections. It's really a good opportunity to promote your company and your place of business, and it's a great opportunity for you to showcase and demonstrate your expertise as a salesperson. You want to be crystal clear about the content and make the content intellectually accessible to whomever your audience is, and of course it depends on who your audience is. And you want to always promise on what you deliver. So if in a sales or if in an educational seminar you said you're going to follow up with somebody, you need to do that. It's really important to do what you say you're going to do. After you have a list of potential customers or prospects, the next step is actually qualifying. And this is where you take your list of potential prospects who appear that they may have a need for your product or may be a good fit for your business, and actually delve a little bit deeper, gather a little bit more information, and find out if this particular person on your prospect list actually represents a potential high quality prospect or whether they're a lower quality prospect. This is the first opportunity that you have as a salesperson to consider what the needs of the buyer might be and how those needs match with the products and services that you offer. And so qualifying is a really important step. To establish your qualifying criteria, you want to know, does the prospect or account have a need for my product? Is this somebody who actually needs what I have to offer? Does the prospect or account have the authority to buy my product? Am I talking to the right person? Is this the person who ultimately is going to make the decision about whether to buy or not to buy? Or is that somebody else in the organization or even in the family unit? Does the prospect or account have the financial resources to buy my product? There's no point in investing in establishing relationships with people who do not have the means to purchase what it is you're selling. There's no point in a car salesperson who sells high-end luxury sports cars that sell for $100, $200, $300,000. There's no point in them contacting me. I'm not a good prospect. Even if I go on the company's website and I play around, with those build your own vehicle uh, uh, features on websites, and so maybe I enter my email address in order for me to do that, or maybe I follow them on social media, or maybe I went to a car show and I provided them with my name and contact information. All the salesperson has to do is a quick sort of investigation into me as a consumer, and they'll quickly realize that I'm not in the market for a sports car that's in that price range, and so there's no point in pursuing that relationship with me any further. Does the prospect or account have a willingness to buy the product? Are they somebody who's open-minded enough that they're at least willing to start the conversation about this particular product and start that sales relationship? Those are some of the things that you want to think about when you're deciding whether or not a prospect should remain on your prospect list, or whether you maybe should move them off the list because they don't represent a good opportunity for you as a salesperson. Smart salespeople collect and organize prospect information. They don't just store it all in their head. They develop a system, very often a database, where they collect, capture, organize information about prospects on a regular basis. I had a former student who now works in sales for a local brewery in to talk to students a couple of years ago in this class. And he was talking about one of his jobs was to visit all of the liquor stores in PEI and to sort of build relationships with the liquor store managers to make sure that the products from his company were featured, recommended, well placed, well positioned, and promoted by the local liquor stores. And he said the first thing he does after he goes into a liquor store and meets with the liquor store manager and talks to them about a variety of things, business and non-business related, is that he said when he goes back to his car, the first thing he does is open his laptop and updates his contact for that person to note what they talked about, what he promised to do or deliver, and it could be everything from where the liquor store manager went on vacation. It doesn't all have to be business oriented, but you capture as much information so that the next time you go in to visit with that person, you have a solid foundation from which to sort of build that conversation. So good salespeople do that on a regular basis. It's called sales intelligence. It gives salespeople access to the insights into the potential customers' marketplace, their firm, the competitors, and even the prospects themselves. It helps answer the question that customers often have: do you even know me and who I am? Do you know my company? Do you know my marketplace? Do you know my customers? And do you have anything special to add in terms of value to me as a potential customer of yours? Good salespeople use the funnel approach. They're constantly adding people to their prospecting list. They're constantly qualifying people. They're constantly accumulating sales intelligence about their prospects on a regular basis in sort of a funnel model where people are constantly cycling in and out of their prospecting list so that the list of prospects is as up to date and as current and workable as possible. And good salespeople invest their time and energy into making sure that this is done well, done accurately, and it's up to date on a regular basis, because that's going to be the foundation from which you build your sales career.